Now it is my pleasure to introduce Tim Peter, who will serve as our presenter. First, a big thank you to Tim for joining us. Tim Peter helps companies put the web to work to grow their business. He has worked since 1995 developing innovative e-commerce and internet marketing programs across multiple industries. Prior to launching Tim Peter and Associates, a full-service e-commerce and internet marketing consulting firm in early 2011, he worked with the world's largest hotel franchisor and the world's premier independent luxury hotel representation firm to help hotels and resorts across diverse segments achieve more than $2 billion in online revenue. Tim teaches in several Rutgers mini MBA programs, always receiving stellar evaluations. Today, he's going to bring us information about marketing when circumstances are changing and uncertain. And on that note, I'll hand things over to Tim to get things started. Tim, the virtual floor is yours.
Margaret, I appreciate it. So there's a reason we call this marketing in uncertain times. It's not called marketing in great times. It's not called marketing in bad times. It's called marketing in uncertain times. And it's called that for a very specific reason. Because if you look at the economy today, if you look at the state of the economy today, if you look at the state of business today, and if I were to sum it up in just one word, that one word would be weird. Things are very, very weird right now. And I'm not the only person saying this. This is a Harvard economist. This is Jason Furman, who's an economist at Harvard. He said, if you're not a little confused about the economy, you're not paying attention. We are seeing historically large disconnects between things that typically aren't disconnected. So for instance, jobs are growing, but GDP, the gross domestic product, is contracting. That's never happened before. Price growth is rising, right? We're seeing inflation. We've all heard about inflation. We're all dealing with inflation. But wage growth is falling. That also doesn't happen. And consumer sentiment is plummeting. We're actually at the lowest consumer sentiment that has been measured in 60 years. But consumer spending is rising. Now, I don't know about you, but that, again, is very, very strange. People usually don't say, oh, I feel really worried about the economy, and then go out and spend a whole bunch of money. Those things don't tend to happen at the same time. So all in all, it is weird. And our job as marketers, our job as business owners, our job as business professionals is to say, how do we make sense of this weird economy? And how do we make it work for our business? So I want to ask a question of you. I want to start by just hearing what you think. We're going to do a quick poll of where do you think we're going? So there's a quick question. Do you think we're going to be up more than 4% in the next year? Do you think we're going to be up between 2 and 4%? Flat, down 2 to 4%, or down more than 4% over the next year?
I'm going to give folks a few seconds to reply before I end the poll and post the results for you, if that's okay, Tim.
That is perfect.
All right, I'm going to end the poll and post the results for you.
Terrific. All right, so this is what people here think. And I want you to know, most people, the plurality, think that we're going to be down between 2 and 4%. 39% of you said we're going to be down between 2 and 4%. But the second largest segment, 25%, said we're going to be up between 2 and 4%. The next largest segment, we actually have a tie between people who say we're going to be flat and people who say we're going to be down more than 4%. And then we have a handful of optimists, and thank God you're here, who say we're going to be up more than 4%. The point here, and I mean no disrespect to anybody, the point here is nobody knows. I'm originally from Newark. Nobody knows nothing. We don't know. Nobody knows. It's crazy. Right? It's crazy. This is as uncertain economy. I have worked professionally for years, and I want to tell you, This is the most strange economy I've ever seen. This is not like 2008, where we had a massive, massive downturn, or 2001, where the travel industry where I worked had a massive downturn after 9/11, or 2020, where we all lived through a crazy downturn in terms of what was going on with the pandemic. This is strange. Normally, you would expect to see people all cluster towards we're going up or we're going down or we're going to hover somewhere in the middle. And if you can see, people are all over the map. All right. So one more poll question. Let's ignore the economy. Where do you think your business is going in the next year? So over the next year, are you going to be up more than 5%? Are you going to be up 3 to 5? Are you going to be roughly flat, give or take 3 points? Down 3 to 5, down more than 5?
I'll give another few seconds for people to weigh in. All right, last call to get a response in. Okay, here we go.
Perfect. Okay. Now, the plurality, the largest single group of you, and it's very, very tight here. There's only one person difference when we got 50 people on the poll. But the largest single share saying we're going to be flat, give or take 3 points. The next largest share, and again, it's only one person difference, so this isn't what we call statistically significant, said they're going to be up between 3 and 5%. A chunk of you say you're going to be up more than 5%. Fantastic. And there's a small percentage who are saying we're going to be down between 3 and 5%. I assume that's driven by macro factors. I assume there's things going on in your industry or among your customers or things like that might be driving that. My goal for all of you is to push you up by the end of today, at least one category. If you're down between 3 and 5, you're expecting to be down, how do we get you to flat? If you think we're going to be flat, how do we get you to between 3 and 5? If you're between 3 and 5, how do we get you over 5? And if you're over 5, how do we get you well over 5? That's what we're going to try and talk about today. And we're going to think about coming up with a framework that you can use to approach your marketing over the course of the next year, so that when you look back, you'll end up in a category higher than the one you thought about, regardless of what happens with the economy as a whole. Okay? Just keep in mind, things are weird. So everything we're going to do here is we're going to try to make it less weird. In fact, it's so weird. Note the disparity right here. It's almost like we're asking a magic 8-ball what's going on. And the answer right now is reply hazy, try again. Right, y'all remember the magic 8-ball? Let me give you a real world example of how strange things are. Google has paused hiring. Right? Google is one of the largest employers, one of the most biggest, most successful companies. Google has paused hiring, and Google knows everything, right? We all know this. And yet they said, whoa, 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 we got to pause hiring. So that should tell us, oh no, things are really, really bad, right? Oh, except that they paused hiring for 2 weeks. Now, I don't know about you, that's not a huge hiring freeze. If you say we're simply not going to hire for the next 2 weeks, that doesn't sound like a big number. Except that when you're Google, and I want to be very fair, I took all of their salaries and all of their compensation, but over the course of a year, 2 weeks salaries for Google is $940 million. So 2 weeks of compensation for Google is about $940 million, which that sounds like a really big number. I would assume for most of us, that is a non-trivial number. Anytime we get near to $1 billion, I don't care who you are, that's a sizable chunk of change, right? Except for Google, that's about 32 hours worth of revenue. So you can see that's a weird back and forth, right? Very strange. But there's actually an underlying point here that I think is really smart and we want to pay attention to. And we're going to talk about this a lot over the course of our time together. Because what Google's actually doing, what they're really doing, what they're really thinking about, is they're keeping their options open. They said, we're going to pause hiring for 2 weeks. We're going to pause hiring to make sure we're in a good position. And if in 2 weeks' time they need to pause it for another 2 weeks, they can do it. If they need to pause it for another 4 weeks, they can do it. But if they don't, that's great. They stop the pause. And at any time, they can go back and pause again for another 2 weeks. So when you're asking the magic 8 ball and you're saying, what the hell? Remember that, things aren't as crazy as they might be. You want to be able to keep your options open. And we're going to talk about how you can do that over the course of our time together today. The other thing that I want to point out is, and I said this right at the beginning, this is marketing in uncertain times, not marketing in bad times. I realize things are challenging, and I don't want for a second to suggest that there aren't people who are struggling. There are. I also want to point out that there's an old proverb that things could always be worse, right? This is recession data for every recession since the Great Depression. The Great Depression numbers are not here, though it does start with the recession of 1937, which was a massive one, right? Huge, huge, huge recession. Now, the average recession, if we count all of these, we had a duration of about 10 and a half months. They had a GDP decline of 4.8%, and unemployment hit about 9.5%. Those are not great numbers. If you factor out if you exclude COVID, the Great Recession in 1937, the average GDP decline is about 2.5%. Right now, GDP is kind of bouncing back and forth. So, we probably might be in a recession. By the way, an official recession, so we're all, defining terms here, is 2 consecutive quarters of GDP declines. And we may have seen 2 consecutive quarters. We're waiting on the Q2 numbers. But if that's true, then we're already 6 months into something that on average lasts about 10 months. So it's possible, I don't think it's likely, but it's possible we may already be in the middle of something that will be done with by the end of the year. Maybe. We'll have to see. Now, the flip side of this is, let's talk about what this means. If the average GDP decline is 4.8%, 5%, and if we assume, when in doubt, always assume your average, right? We don't know what's going to happen. I'm not making a prediction because we don't know. But you can take it for granted that, we're probably going to be about average in any normal term, and that's about 5%. US GDP per capita, US GDP per person in the country is about $61,000. Now, a 5% decline is about $3,100 per year per person. By the way, I'm cheating a little bit and talking about the population and, not including businesses in that. It's just an easy way to think about it. So that's roughly $250 a month that your customers aren't spending. Our goal is to make sure that when we're thinking about this, we're talking about how to make sure the $250 they're not spending with someone else. Now, the good news about any kind of time like this is times like now, are when you get good at what you do. I've done marketing for 25 years. I've been doing this since the mid-90s. And I'd like to point out, from 2002 to 2008, I was the best digital marketer in the world. Seriously, I can prove it. Everything I did worked. Never failed. From 2002 to 2008. Oh, wait. A rising tide lifts all boats, right? Of course, everything worked. The economy was booming. Everything I did from about 95 to about 2000 went really well too, until the dot-com bubble burst, right? But what happens is when things go bad, that's when you have to get good at what you do. That's when you have to really be focused on how to get better at what you do. So anything that happens now is an opportunity to improve, is an opportunity to get better. What you're going to want to do over the course of the next year is you hope for the best and you plan for the worst. There's an old quote from General Eisenhower, Ike, we like Ike, who said, plans, planning is essential. Plans are useless, right? We might have to throw out our plans 6 months from now. But if we're continually planning and thinking about what we need to do, we're going to be in better shape because we will have thought through what's the worst thing that can happen. And then anything that's less than that, we're already set for because we've already thought through what that's going to look like. This is when you get good at what you do and how you focus on doing that. Now, the last thing I want to say before we get into what you do specifically, you may have heard this story before, but there's this story about the two guys who are walking through the woods. They're on a nice hike in the woods, they have their hiking boots on, trucking along, and all of a sudden a bear comes charging through the woods towards them. The first guy, the first thing he does is he sits down, starts pulling off his boots, pulls a pair of running shoes out of his backpack, starts putting them on. The second guy says, "What are you doing? You will never outrun that bear." And the first guy says, "I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you." What we want to think about in any of the times like this, any kind of uncertain times, is not just how do we outrun the bear, but how do we make any problems our competition's problem? Again, that $250 less per month your customers are going to spend, let's make sure it's coming out of his pocket and not out of yours. So you always want to be thinking about, how do I outrun not just the bear, but also my competition? Now, I would like to take a moment to remind you, you can ask questions as we go forward. Please feel free to pop them in the chat box or in the Q&A box. I will look forward to answering them as we go. But let's talk about how you do this. Let's talk about how you actually make this work for you. There are 3 pillars I want you to keep in mind throughout. And they're very simple. They are process, they are price, and they are promotion. Whenever we get into uncertain times, we need to think about our process very, very clearly. We need to think about, do we have the right processes in place that allow us to respond to changing market conditions? We need to think about price because customers become more price sensitive in uncertain times. You're uncertain about what's happening in your business. They're uncertain about what's happening in their lives. So we need to make sure we're thinking about price in a way that is appropriate to where our customers happen to be. And the last of these is promotion. Obviously, promotion is a huge part of marketing. We want to get our messages in front of our customers. We also want to make sure we're promoting in a way that is appropriate to the times and appropriate to the needs of our customers so that they think of us in a really positive way, not just during any uncertainty, but as times improve as well. So let's start with process. The very first thing I want to point out about process is really underscored by a conversation that was had in Delta Airlines earnings calls a couple of weeks ago. Now, or about a week ago. Now, you've all probably heard, and maybe you've experienced, if you've tried to fly this summer, it's been a bit of a mess, right? People are struggling to operationalize the air travel. People are, flights are delayed. People are having trouble making connections. Customers can't get where they want, and they're pretty miserable about it. And somebody asked the CEO of Delta Airlines, why don't you just hire more people? And he said something that I thought was really interesting and really fascinating, and something we need to think about continually, and especially in uncertain times. He said the chief issue we're working through is not a hiring problem, but a training and experience bubble. We have the people, they just don't know what to do. Marketing in uncertain times depends upon you always learning. There's an old quote, I'm going to get it wrong and I apologize, but it says something to the effect of, we don't have to change the answers on the test. The answers never change. The questions do, right? Nope, I got that backwards. See, I knew I was going to get it wrong. Sorry, there's a professor who said, I don't need to change my quiz every year, my test every year, because the questions never change. The answers do. There it is. I knew I'd get that right eventually. The point is, you've got to continually be learning. The questions don't change. The answers change all the time. We need to be learning continually at how to get better at what we do, because the answers are going to keep changing. What our customers expect are going to keep changing. What we have to do to meet the needs of our customers keep changing. We must continue to work that through and always be learning. And that's really critical because we don't want to give our customers the kinds of experiences that the airlines are right now. We want to keep thinking through how to do that. So how do you do that? How do you continue learning? Well, there's a very simple process that you've probably heard of before. It comes from software development, it comes from technology, but many people apply it today in marketing, and I would encourage you to as well, which is use an agile process. And an agile process has some built-in assumptions to it. The first is, some built-in steps to it. The first is you identify your assumptions. What is it that you assume to be true? You then look at every opportunity to disprove those assumptions, to disprove those beliefs. If I've seen one mistake people make again and again, in good times and in bad times, is they look for evidence that proves what they believe, which is actually not the best way to do it. You want to look for data, you want to look for points, you want to look for data points that disprove what you believe. And if you can't find them, if you can't prove that you're wrong, then it's more likely that you're right. So you want to seek to disprove your beliefs. You want to be data-driven around meaningful metrics. And I'm going to talk about this more in just a moment. You want to test to optimize. You want to test to continually get better and make it better each time. And last, you need to improve and iterate quickly. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, you need to put something in front of customers. You need to put something in front of the market quickly and learn from them whether it's working or not, and then improve upon it and improve upon it and then improve upon it. We need to continually be moving to market quickly, especially as conditions are changing, especially as the market is changing, so that we can actually do a better job of meeting our customers' needs and drive the success of our marketing and drive the success of our sales. Now, I mentioned data-driven on meaningful metrics. That's the next thing you have to do. More than ever right now, you need to listen to your data. You need to be really close to your data. The reason for this image is I am very fond of saying, and I will talk about this more later, but I'm very fond of saying that content is king, customer experience is queen, and data is the crown jewels. Data are the riches that you build your kingdom on, that you build your empire on. But that data has to be really useful to you. It has to be data you can apply. And there's some very simple things you want to look for. Is the data meaningful? What do I mean by that? I mean, if your data says things are going up 1% and you're a $100,000 company or you're $1 million company, that's not very much money. It's not terribly meaningful. If you're a $1 billion company and you grow at 0.5% per year because you're in a mature industry, then a 1% shift could be huge. So you want to think in terms of, is the data meaningful? Does it demonstrate business value to us? The next is it actionable? If I look at this piece of data, do I know what to do next? Does it guide me towards an action? One of the key points of any data, of any metric, is to reduce uncertainty. So can you look at that data and say, this is going to help me know what to do next? We've seen there's a big increase in traffic from paid search. Cool. What do I do about that? Well, I allocate more budget to paid search because there's obviously demand there. Oh, we've seen a huge increase in likes on a post we did on social media. Is that actionable? Not necessarily, though it might indicate, hey, that's a message that resonates with people. Let's go ahead and use that message in other channels. So think about how it's actionable. Think about how it's segmented, and it's, we'll come back to this in a moment, but think about which customers the data applies to. I'm going to come back to that more in just a second. Look at it in terms of trended. Is the data trended? Is it telling us where we are, right? Let's go back to our example of we're up 1% this month. Well, where were you last month? If you were down 20%, being up 1% is hugely valuable. If you were down, if you're down 0.5% and you're up 1%, it's trended. It's telling us something, but it's not necessarily telling us as much as it would be if we were looking at a longer period. If we're always up a half point, down a half point, up a half point, down a half point, the trend says, what we're really doing is we're really flat. So the trend is going to help you. Make sure the data is timely. Are you looking at data in time for it to be actionable for you? If you're reviewing data right now from 6 months ago, it's probably not super useful to where you are right now. So if you typically look at your reports monthly, are you better served right now making sure you're reporting weekly? If you look at them, quarterly, should you be looking at them monthly, or again, maybe weekly? Right now, we want to be particularly timely. And then the last, and this one's the hardest, so I want to be very clear, but you want to look for data that is predictive. Is this going to tell us where we're going from here? Do we know what to do next, or do we know what to expect based on our data? So I will give you a perfect example. We see data all the time in digital marketing campaigns where we see it drives X% of traffic. However, we have seen with some clients, with some channels that, when you drive traffic up 10%, conversions go up 10%. You get 10% more sales. Great, super predictive. And we can prove that it actually validates every time. There are some channels we've seen for some clients where we get a 10% lift in traffic, but sales either stay flat or don't move or drop or things like that, or move in different directions at different times. The traffic is good. We're clearly getting some awareness. We're clearly getting our message in front of customers. We're clearly getting them to take some action, like click through, come over to the website. But it's not predictive of sales, so it's not necessarily telling us what we want it to be. And as a result, it's not necessarily meaningful. So look for data that's actually helping you understand that if I pull this lever, I get this result, so that you know, okay, I need to pull this lever again and again and again. Now, one of the pieces of data that matters in particular in uncertain times is what our customer is telling us. So a particular piece of data, a particular way to focus on segments, is we've got to listen to our customer. Right now, one size does not fit all. By the way, I apologize to anybody who's eating lunch for this photograph. I'm sorry, I didn't have time, so I had to grab a quick selfie. But the point is that this data, what's going on right now, is all over the place. I think, I don't know this, I'm not confident that this is correct, but I think this has some potential to be correct. When we look at the data right now about why, customer sentiment is really poor, but customer spending is really high, why job growth is really, really high, but GDP is dropping, right? The reason that I think that could be is because we probably don't have one economy right now. I don't know this. This is a guess. This is an assumption. Now I got to go find data that disproves it. But my assumption is you probably have customers who are having a terrible year, who are really struggling right now. It doesn't matter if you sell to people or if you sell to consumers or if you sell to businesses. You have customers who are having a tough year. You also may have customers who are having the best year ever because the industry they're in or the business that they're in or the customers that they serve have high demand right now. So two things can be true at the same time. You could have customers, B2B or B2C, where those are both true at the same time, where in this area things are great and in this area things are terrible. That's probably a reason why there's so much uncertainty right now. So if you're trying to talk to your customers as if they're one large group, instead of thinking of them in terms of segments and understanding where each segment of customers are, you're probably not talking to the right people. You're probably not hearing the right thing, or you're getting a mixed message. Remember that one size does not fit all, and look for ways to segment that data such that you can understand this is this customer's need and this is this customer's need, so that you can speak to those needs directly. The last thing I want to focus on when we talk about process is a process that works really well all the time, but particularly when we're in uncertain times. And it's something we refer to as core and explore. Now, what does that mean? It means that at your core, you want to put most of your focus on key areas that consistently work, right? If you've been doing your marketing for, the last 5 years, and you find that social is working really, really well for you, you have found that, when we put things up on Instagram, that's driving a lot of results for us. Keep doing that. Allocate most of your budget and most of your resources to proven areas. You're in B2B and you're having a lot of success with LinkedIn and marketing on LinkedIn. Great. Keep doing that. We have a message that we've tested and it works no matter where we put it. Great. Keep doing that. Allocate most of your budget and resources to proven areas. That's your core. 90% of your time. Maybe 80 if you're particularly willing to take some risks. Explore is where you do small scale tests of new products, new services, new markets, new segments, new channels. The mistake that people can make, and I don't think they're doing anything wrong, but you've probably heard, the CEO of your company or the leader of your company or the owner of a business that you work with saying, things are tough right now. Things are uncertain. We're going to stick to our knitting. We're going to stick to the things that we know that are going to work. That's great. You should, most of the time. If that's all you do, though, you put yourself in a position where you're not growing as things improve. You may miss out on opportunities. You may miss out on things that actually will help you grow for the longer term. You may find that, parts of the thing that are your core, maybe you have a product that right now nobody wants. Explore is where you find what is it that they do want. So you do small scale tests, and again, maybe 10% of your budget, maybe 15% of your budget of new products, new services, new markets, new segments, new channels. And then over time, you move the tests that work into your core. The great thing about Core and Explore, and little secret, the great thing about everything we're talking about here, is this all works when the economy gets good too. These process improvements make sure that you're helping reach the right customer and allocating your resources in a smart way and an intelligent way so that you can grow your business in times that are tough and in times that are great. Are there any questions about any of that before I move on?
A great time to remind everyone that they can go to the Q&A box to submit their questions when we queue up Q&A. We did have one question come in. Do you want me to pose it to you?
Yeah, please,
okay,
please.
Great. We have someone who's asking you to expand on your discussion about data. Tools were an example about what can help with marketing strategies, focus on CRM, dashboard, etc.
Yeah, great. So first, I would suggest start with the data that you already have. Are you using that data in a way that helps you identify predictive behaviors from your customers and in a way that is meaningful to your business? Is it helping tell you something that you should already know, right? And can we apply that? If it isn't, if you find that data is not helping us, that's when you start to, again, core and explore new areas. Do we need a dashboard that tells us something that's much more timely, that is much more focused on actionable insights? We do for many people, and I've done for many years, a quarterly or semi-annual dashboard review, not where we review the data, but we review whether the data is answering the questions we needed to answer. True story, I walked into a client probably a year ago, and I asked them if they could send me any dashboards that they had. And literally, This is not a joke. I got sent 47 different dashboards. Now, this was a large company. I want to be fair, right? But if you had a dashboard in your car that had 47 different sets of data on it, you'd crash. The dashboards weren't telling us anything. They had too much information on them. I've also seen companies plenty of times where they look at, one or two numbers. Those probably also aren't telling you enough. You always want to keep your eyes forward, but you got to check the rear view once in a while. You've got to keep making sure we've got enough data to make good decisions. But start with the data that you have today and the data that you look at regularly. Look to see, is it helping you answer questions about, are we allocating our resources correctly? Are those resources delivering the results that we expect? Are the actions predictive of the results that we'd like to see? And if the answer to any of those is no, then you start to look at what other data sources do we need to get to help us answer those questions, and do it in a very core and explore way. Focus most of your time on the things that are working, and then test to see what works beyond that.
That's great. Tim, did you want to continue taking questions, or do you
Yeah,
want
I'll
me to
take one
hold?
more question now before we jump
Okay.
into the next bit.
All right. The next question is, how do you know what marketing strategy will work for the majority of people?
How much time have you got? um, it's I'm gonna give a very simple answer to a very complex question. I tend to define marketing as next month's sales. Now, for some businesses, if you're B2B, maybe it's next quarter's sales, maybe it's next year's sales, right? But it's a point of the marketing should be delivering sales results. There was a thing Airbnb did during the pandemic. When the pandemic first started, they cut 100% of their marketing in a handful of areas that they felt had underperformed over the last couple of years. And what they discovered was when they cut that spend, their sales didn't change. I want to say that one more time. They cut 100% of marketing in a handful of areas, and their sales didn't change at all. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a pretty clear sign that where they were spending that money in the first place didn't work. If you can cut the budget in half and see no difference, or cut the budget by 100% and see no difference, or increase it by 50% or 100% and see no difference, then what you're doing isn't working. So in terms of things that you always know will work, make a big change, maybe in a small area, because again, this is a test, but make a big change and see if you can make a difference. In 2008, I was working for a large company. We had a situation where the economy was was cratering. And my boss said, we need to stop spending this money in this specific area. We were doing paid search was the specific area in this case. We need to reclaw that budget because it was one of the biggest areas where we spent. And I said to him, I'm reasonably confident that if we do that, we're going to take a big hit. And he said, how confident are you? I said, I'm so confident. I'm gonna cut our budget for the next 2 weeks in half, and we're going to see, we will see a result. I just need you to not fire me 2 weeks from now when sales go down faster because we cut budget in half. And he said, agreed. And so we cut budget in half for 2 weeks. At the end of 2 weeks, we saw a dip in our sales by about the amount we anticipated because we were pretty good about making sure our metrics were predictive. He came back and said, you're absolutely right. Can you spend more money? Now, this is a problem with paid search. You've probably all seen this. The problem with paid search is you are harvesting latent demand. You're picking up dollars that people are throwing at you. If they stop searching for some terms, it doesn't matter how much you want to spend. There's no more volume there to be picked up. There's no more demand to be harvested. So unfortunately, we went back to what our 100% of our spend was. But if we wanted to spend 105%, it didn't matter. There was no more demand to be had there. So that's the downside of paid search. But, we did a test. The test showed it worked. We invested as much budget as we possibly could there. And then obviously we had to find other areas, and that's where Core Next Door mattered. Okay. All right, so let's talk about, since we're talking about spending money, let's talk about how customers spend money. Let's talk about price, right? Right now, the way people look at a dollar that they have in their pocket varies widely. Some people see it as, oh my gosh, this is great, I got a dollar. And some people look at it and go, oh my gosh, this is crumpled and grimy. Or they look at it and, oh my gosh, this is the last dollar I have. I need to be really smart about this. And I need to keep it in my pocket longer. Now, one of the things to be aware is a thing that marketers do a lot, I've done it myself a lot, is we go, well, we want that dollar, and the only way we're going to get it is we're going to discount. I'm begging you, begging you, begging you, please don't do that. Please don't start there. Please don't start with discounting. I'm not saying you never use it. I'm just saying, please don't start there. And here's why. There is a well-known principle that happens again and again and again, that you have soft business results. And as a result, you slash prices, you discount. The moment you do that, you have less income, right? Because by definition, if you're charging $100 for a product and now you charge $85, you have 15 fewer dollars to play with. And so you have to cut service or marketing to pay for that $15 difference you have in revenue. Now, sometimes, but not always, your short-term sales improve. Hey, you sold more stuff, right? Except that especially these days, your competitors respond. They say, great, we'll do that. We'll cut our prices too. And that causes a reality where your customer expectations shift. They expect that A, your product is worth less, not worthless, but worth less. And B, the service I get isn't quite as good as it used to be. And so I'm less willing to pay more for that. And now I start looking for alternatives. And when I start looking for alternatives, that leads for you to have soft business results. So what do? You reduce prices. Well, what do you do when you reduce prices? You have to cut service and marketing. Your short-term sales might improve, but your competitors respond, which then shifts your customer expectations to where they expect less, which leads to softer business results. So you reduce prices. So you cut certain, you see what's happening here? This is a death spiral. This is how businesses die. And we see it again and again and again. And the worst part is it literally becomes a race to see who among you and your competitors runs out of money last. I call this the race to zero. And the best way to win the race to zero is don't run in it. Don't do this. I'm going to tell you how you do discount in a minute, but don't do this, because this will kill you dead. And there's always some idiot out there who's willing to do what you do for less, even if it costs them money. Or there's somebody like an Amazon or a Walmart or, a large company, some venture-backed, business-to-business company or the like, who can burn more cash than you can. Now, we see this all the time. These were just a couple of quick Google searches I did this morning, actually. Here's hotels in Daytona Beach, Florida. Look, there's the price of everything. You can't always drive more sales from this because your customers already know the price of everything. Here's some Bose Bluetooth SoundLink headphones. Look, there's $179 on the Bose, $179 at Bose, $162 at Amazon. I guess I'm going to buy those. Done, right? So you don't even necessarily get the benefit of the short-term sales improvement. Don't run the race to zero. Now, what you can do is you can do value adds. You can say, how do we actually increase the value we give our customers? How do we show them more value for the price that they pay? And you can flip that on its head if you want to discount, if you want to. Think about a value subtract. This is one of my favorite examples of all time. They've been doing it for what, 20 years, 30 years, the McDonald's dollar menu, which, by the way, because of inflation, they recently changed to the $1, $2, and $3 menu. But they're being very clear of, here's what you get for $1. Here's what you get for $2. Here's what you get for $3. You get less for $1 than you get for $3. But they're being very clear that it's not a discount. We didn't cut the price of the chicken McNuggets. We simply said that you get 4 of them for $1 instead of 6 of them or 8 of them. You can do it with B2B as well. Notice this is business, Microsoft 365, business basic, business standard, business premium, 365 apps for business. This is a value minus. Notice they give you the apps and nothing else, right? So we got the little blue cloud, but none of the other stuff. They pulled it out of their standard and they charge a little bit less for it. It's a discount, but it's shown as a value to you, the customer. So don't discount, think value add. How do we give people more? You know, I saw an example the other day. Oh gosh, I just completely blanked on this. You went to a restaurant and they had a prefix menu. And it was, you paid one price and you got 3 courses for the specific things for $40, right? Not counting drinks, not counting tip. But it was very smart. It's their dollar menu, but they just made it a $40 menu. And you got an appetizer, you got a dinner, and you got dessert. Were each of those things less? Probably. Were the portions a little smaller? Definitely. But they didn't lower the price of the filet mignon. They said, we're going to give you a smaller filet mignon along with an appetizer and a dessert for $40. Think about it that way. So think about how you do value adds and value subtracts to sell your customer as opposed to discounting. I want to get into promotion, but the first promotion I want to talk about is also related to price. This is how you can discount when you need to. Do it for your best customers. Do it for your best customers, do it for a limited time. So these are 3 different examples. You know, Nordstrom Rack, notice exclusive access for you, our best customer, but it ends April 29th at 8 a.m. Skechers, we save the best. It's your 1-year anniversary. We like you so much, we're going to give you 15% off, but you got to spend $50 to get it. If you think about an exclusive discount on unlimited data just for you, this went to my wife. I'm not Tamara, that's my wife. But again, a limited discount for a discount you love. So we're sending it only to our very best customers. We're time boxing it. This ends April 29th. We're putting a curb in place where you have to clear the curb to get the discount. If you want 15% off, you got to spend $50. So we're being really smart about how to discount in this context. Now, I want to be really, really fair. Here's a thing that maybe you don't know. I don't know that they only sent these to their very best customers. Maybe they sent it to their entire email list, but we told the customer it's because you're a best customer. So you can always come back later and raise the price, and it's not a big deal because you understood this was a limited time offer with specific, hurdles that had to be cleared to make that happen, and only because we're doing it as an appreciation for you, our customer. That's how you discount and do it in a way that you're not just cutting your price to everybody everywhere. Now, I mentioned before, the king, the queen, and the crown jewels. Content is king, customer experience is queen, data is the crown jewels. We need to think about how these all work together. So let's talk about content. Do we have the right content to address our customers' needs? Remember, one size does not fit all. Are we giving them an experience that they look for, that matters to them, and that they're willing to open up their wallet and pay for? And are we using data to inform both of those? I'm going to show a couple of examples real quick. One, this comes out of travel, but you see it everywhere. Sell the destination first. Right now, if you want people to open up their wallet and take money out of their wallet, you have to convince them why they need the thing you're selling in the first place. Not just you, but why they need the whole category. If you're familiar with Zelle, Zelle is a great example of a partnership for value adds. The banks were looking at PayPal and looking at Venmo and looking at tools like that people were using to transfer money, Apple a wallet to transfer money, and saying, wait, we're getting undercut by this. This is costing us money. So they partnered and created their own payment system called Zelle. It's a value add to the customers because it's really simple. All it does is connect to your banks. Notice all the banks that have signed up, but they didn't say use Bank of America or use Wells Fargo. They said use digital payments, and we're going to make it really easy for you to do so. They sold the destination first. They sold the beach versus skiing. Oh, you're going to the beach? Now let's tell you about why our resort is the right one. Sell the destination first. One of the things that you have to do, again, we are in uncertain times. We have to make sure that our customers feel confident themselves. They have to have a certain degree of certainty. They have to be willing to take a leap of faith. And so our content has to help assure them that they're going to be satisfied when they're using our products and services, that our content answers their questions and whatever questions they happen to have. And we have to make them understand why they should buy from you. By the way, I'd really like to say thanks to my brother-in-law for posing for this picture. Huge help. You can use your data, your customer information, to improve your products, your services, and your messaging. So this is an example from a hotel client of mine. We just looked at all their social media data. What did people like? By the way, full disclosure, we also looked at what people didn't like. I'm just not going to share that publicly with you. Not that I don't love you all, you're all great. But we said, what do people like? They really like the staff. They really like the breakfast. They really like the location. We felt it was a great place for the couple. So what did we do? We went out and shot all new imagery about couples and breakfasts and the staff and the location in town and things along those lines. What happened? Huge lift in web traffic, a big increase in revenues and profitability, and higher ratings on social rating and review sites because people knew what to expect. They knew what they were going to get. Which leads to the last thing I want to talk about from a promotion perspective. You can use social really effectively right now because your customers already like you. You can sell more to your customers and you can turn them into your secret sales force. This is a very, very simple model, right? Let's say you get 260 customers a year. That's one per day times 5 days times 52 weeks. Obviously, multiply this by 10 or 100 or 1,000, whatever size business you have. That's 260 weeks, 260 customers per year. On average, they're going to have about 200 friends on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever social channel they prefer the most. LinkedIn, if you're B2B. That gives a potential audience for you to reach of 260 customers times 200 people. That's 52,000 people. Now, obviously, not all of your customers are going to do that, but if 1% of them do, that's 520 people. And if you convert just 5% of those folks, that's 26 additional sales or a potential sales increase of 10% per year. This is why customer experience is queen. How do we incent our customers? How do we encourage our customers to contribute to and participate in the curation and creation of a positive brand story with the people who are just like them, who are the kinds of customers we want to reach? So remember that content is king. Remember that customers experience is queen. And remember that data is the crown jewels. Use them in conjunction with one another as you think about your process, as you think about your price, and as you think about your promotion to make times less uncertain for you. Now we're running short of time, so I want to give one more poll. So now that we've talked about this for the last hour, now where do you think your business is going next year? Can we pop the poll up? I'd love to see where people feel now.
It should be up there now, and people can see if we've changed their minds or scared the heck out of them.
We scared the heck out of one person. Somebody down 5%. I'm hoping that somebody who didn't participate the first time.
Let's see, we'll give just another moment or two. All right, last call. I'm going to close it out and just give you the results.
All right, so almost half of you now say up 3 to 5%. The next largest share up more than 5%. So there you go. This is what we need to be thinking about as we go forward next year. How do we build on this? Now, I know we're running tight on time, but I'd love to take a question or two if we have any.
Sure. I've been corresponding with someone because I wasn't positive what they meant, and I'm not sure that there's a an answer to this, but if somebody has one, Tim, I think it'll be you. How can I find new customers that I don't really know through Instagram without creating a post about it? How do I network with new people through Instagram to sell them my products?
I'm going to be I have to be really transparent about this. I don't know that I know the answer to that one. When I use Instagram and when my clients use Instagram, we're mainly using it to post content and tell a story about our brand. So we're creating public information. We don't typically reach out one to the customer. We tell a story and encourage the customers to connect one with us.
Yes,
So hopefully that answers the question.
yeah.
By the way, one thing I want to point out, I did get a question. Somebody pinged me directly in the chat and asked, does this work for B2B? The answer is yes. Everything we talked about here works for B2B. What you do want to be aware is the big difference, and one of the reasons I don't show B2B examples as much is many of the things we're talking about. So how you price and how you promote these things to your customers happens through the sales channel, and marketing is creating the assets and partnering with sales on the sales enablement tools and the like, to tell that same story, right? Obviously, the things like value adds, things like partnerships, things like value subtracts, we're working with marketing and sales or marketing and business development to put those together, but the same basic principles apply consistently.
So I have about another minute, and we have someone who just wanted you to talk a little bit more about promotion.
Sure. So the last point I want to make about promotion specifically is that I'm going to go back to core and explore. Particularly in uncertain times, you need to be really clear of which channels are the ones that are driving business for your business, which ones are actually improving the results that you want, and you want to increase your investment in those or shift investment in those channels towards the ones that are working. You also want to still conduct tests of new things, but you're going to do them very small. You're going to have very clear objectives for them, test and see if those promotion channels work for you, and move on quickly. Remember, assume you're wrong. Look for data that disproves your assumptions. If you can't find it, then you might be right and keep doing it. But it's very much use core and explore in that kind of in that situation, because that's what's going to tell you what's working from a channel perspective.
Fantastic. I believe that you had some content that you wanted to quickly review before we let everyone go.
Just super fast review. Remember, right now things are weird. The good news is this is when you get good at how to do it. Keep in mind the 3 pillars of process, price, and promotion. Remember what Google did with its hiring pause. They're actually being agile. They're keeping their options open. Make sure that you're not running the race to zero, but that you are outrunning the bear and making uncertainty your competition's problem. And if you do all of those things, then when you ask the magic 8 ball where we're going to be a year from now, it's going to say outlook good. With that, thank you all very much for your time, your attention, your questions. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I hope you did as well. And I look forward to catching up with y'all soon. Margaret, I'm going to kick it back to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that you made this a fun way to remember the what to do's and the what not to do's to market products and services in uncertain times. And I'd like to thank our audience for their enthusiastic participation in our polls, chat, and Q&A, because it always enhances the dialogue. Just a friendly reminder that RBS webinars have moved. You should now watch for our webinars to take place on Fridays at noon Eastern Time. And for more information, you can always visit our webpage. And I'm only going to, everyone who's here live with us will get this via email, but I'll say it out loud and you can see it on the screen for the people who are watching this as a recording: business.rutgers.edu/alumni/lifelong-learning. And We have an exciting schedule of topics and presenters lined up thanks to suggestions from our audience. So we encourage you to keep sharing your great ideas with us. We want our series to continue to meet your needs. Please stay online for just a moment longer as today's webinar ends, because you'll immediately see a very brief 3-question survey about today's event. One of those survey questions is a free form field to type in subjects and or speakers you'd like to have featured in our future webinars. And finally, as I mentioned when our webinar began, a link to the archived recording of this presentation will be shared via social media and emailed to you. It will also be on the Business Insights page of our website, along with the recordings of our previous virtual lunch and learns. So thank you, Tim. Thank you to a fabulous audience, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day.